moving on then back to quarterbacks, because there is a bit of a drop-off, as you mentioned, especially in one QB leagues, but even in Superflex, you have some of these elite guys before you then insert Zach Wilson, the number 2 pick, and Mac Jones rounds out your first round at number 12 there to finish out your first round of a Dynasty Superflex draft. And then we don't see another quarterback till pick 30. So these are the last 2 guys that you're even considering as a potential panel. I mean, maybe really deep down the line, but yeah. What do you consider with these guys long term? Like, who do you kind of think has a better future, and what kind of holds them back also from being with those big 3?
So yeah, I like Zach Wilson, and I think I could, if you have him at number 4, right behind Fields and Lance, like again, that's not really going to bother me, and I've seen him go in a lot of drafts at number 4. Again, it's kind of like a philosophical thing. Like, do you take a quarterback automatically because they just are so valuable in Superflex, or do you take a guy who you think is going to hit at a higher rate, like you think has a better probability of being like an elite guy? The reason I have I have Chase, Harrison, Pitts over Wilson in Superflex is because I think those 3 guys are just elite prospects. I don't necessarily consider Wilson an elite prospect, at least from fantasy point of view. I think he's a very good prospect, and I comped him to Baker Mayfield. And based on training camp reports, I might end up regretting that because he's just been lighting it up apparently. So like, hey, I mean, if he ends up being a really good player in the NFL and outplays kind of like what I'm expecting in the fantasy world, then that's great. That's good for him. I actually do have a couple of shares of him, so that's not a bad thing. I'm rooting for him. But I just think like overall, I think his rushing upside is a little bit lower than these other guys. Certainly, I think he's a dynamic guy that can like make things happen outside the pocket. But I would compare him more like the reason he's closer to Patrick Mahomes than some of these other guys based on his mobility. I think his like, he reminds me of Mahomes as like a scrambler, which isn't necessarily like an elite. You're making guys miss. You're like picking up these chunk yards. He's a guy that can make things happen outside the pocket, pick up an annoying first down, piss the defense off, and then go back and like throw a touchdown. Versus the guy who's going to like rush for 100 yards in a game. I think he's more like a Mahomes where he can get you like 2 or 3 fantasy points on the ground, but it's not going to be like his game. So that drops him down just a little bit. Obviously, if he ends up being the passer of Mahomes, then I'm going to regret ranking him low, and whatever, everyone's going to regret. The Jags are probably going to regret or passing on him at number 1, but yeah, we'll kind of see how that happens, how that goes. He's obviously, getting a lot of buzz in camp, so that's exciting. I think this offense is perfect for him. The theoretical offense that I think they're going to run there, the 49ers style one. So, I think he's definitely he's in play at number 4, and I wouldn't really blame anyone if they took him that high, especially if they needed quarterbacks.
Yeah, I love the buzz too about the Jets. Like, when he first went there, I was like, it's the Jets. Like, you're gonna go there, your value dies. Like,
totally.
The Jets. But then they beef up the line the right way, and like Elijah Moore, I love that pick. The rapport they're already building.
Speaking of guys, I'm probably already too low on, but yes.
Yep. We're going to be hitting him too, because he's been lighting it up. And then I'm like, all right, the Jets beats writers, are they just like pumping everybody and they're just all going to be world beaters? And I got to approach that a little more cautiously. But I like what they're doing as an organization. I haven't said that about the Jets in a very, very long time.
Right? Yeah.
So he is stepping into a much better situation than I think I initially entering the offseason would have imagined the Jets being. So I've started to steadily rise Wilson, especially with this buzz. That he's killing it, and that as a leader, they're loving him, because you look at the guy and it looks like he's like going to prom night. But if he's a leader of men already and these guys are rallying around him, like that's what you want to hear. That's what you like to see. So I love it. What about Mac Jones? So certainly Wilson's bringing up more upside to the table. And I'm higher on him too. How could you not be? You went number 2. Right. But still, Mac Jones isn't too far behind in your dynasty rankings at number 12. Really the last quarterback you have in any type of starting consideration here. What do you like about him, and what do you think his prospects are with the Patriots? My Patriots over here.
Oh, yes. Forgot you're a Patriots fan. So I got to color it in rose color. No, I'm just kidding. But I think, I think the accuracy is the big thing with him. Accuracy, timing, getting the ball out, distributing the football. It's always been a pejorative to call a guy a game manager, but he is like an elite game manager. I think he's the type of guy who's going to keep moving the chains, give the ball to his best players and let them do the work kind of deal. And him being in what I would consider a pocket quarterback certainly hurts his fantasy outlook, his fantasy upside. I comped him to Matt Ryan And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, I think like if your upside is Matt Ryan in the future, like, you know, your range of outcomes is like you could have one elite year like Matt Ryan did, and then a bunch of pretty damn good years and be like a low end quarterback one. I think there's so much value in that in fantasy and especially in Superflex, particularly in Superflex. He's probably not, you know, going to provide as much value in one QB where you really want to be chasing that ceiling, that upside. But in Superflex, like he's going to get you solid starts, I think, and he's going to develop into a good starter. So, you know, I debated putting him higher here. But again, it was like sort of the question, like, you know, I guess you're just like, who are you chasing here? Like the elite profile type guys, or, you know, a guy who's going to be solid and you don't think he's going to bust. It's just kind of like whether you're chasing ceiling or floor. And I think he could be higher, or I think, you know, in theory, like he could be lower, because I like what we're hearing from Elijah Moore. Like, I almost wish that I had Waddle and Moore switched at this point, but Waddle was the 6th pick. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. And a lot of people love Waddle. A lot of people, like, I think NFL teams had Waddle as their wide receiver one. So it's just tough. Like these rankings are just, you know, there's tiers here, and it's more like tiers than individual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 type of deal. So yeah.
Right. Absolutely. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.